Hello and welcome. In this video, I'm diving into what the Hermetic principle of cause and effect means, how it affects your life, and how you can use this principle to manifest the things you want into your life and create more fulfillment in your life. Hello and welcome back to the channel. My name is Gabby and I'm here to help you be the hero of your story. When it comes to being the hero of your story, the teachings of the Hermetic principles, also known as the Kybalion, which are the teachings of Hermes Trismegistus, are an amazing insight to the ways that we can embrace being the hero of our story. The philosophy of the Hermetic principles is really based on the original teachings of a man, part God, nobody really knows, of a man from a long time ago in ancient Egypt, a man known as Hermes Trismegistus. Hermes Trismegistus was said to have taught these principles, and these principles became actually the root of all religion that followed. All religion can kind of be, at least in the purest sense of every religion, can be brought back into a resonance and a very quite similar themes to the teachings of the Kybalion, the teachings of Hermes Trismegistus. Now, I'm not diving into too much about what the Kybalion is, who Hermes Trismegistus was, because in part 1 of my video series about the Hermetic principles, I dive into what is the Kybalion in the first place. What are the 7 Hermetic principles? So if you haven't watched that video, go back, check the link down below, check the cards, and check out the first video in this playlist. Now, the other thing to keep in mind is that the Hermetic principles are all built on top of each other. Think of it almost like this hierarchy of principle, that the foundation that you have to understand before you can reach the pyramid, the top of the pyramid, which are all these layers that are built on top of each other. So understanding the principle of cause and effect is best understood when you have understood all of the prior five principles that came before this. So if you check out my whole playlist and now you're here at the principle of cause and effect, then let's dive in. So first up, what is the principle of cause and effect? So the quote from the Kybalion is as follows: every cause has its effect. Every effect has its cause. Everything happens according to law. Chance is but a name for law not recognized. There are many planes of causation, but nothing escapes the law. Now, every single principle in the Kybalion is extremely thought-provoking and intriguing and powerful, but to some extent, I almost think this might be the most profound and effective and mind-blowing principle inside the Kybalion. The simplest way to describe the law of cause and effect is nothing is by chance. Nothing is by chance. It's a quote from the Kybalion. The whole idea of cause and effect is basically that nothing is a coincidence, because if you believe in the all, which is the first foundation, the first principle, the law of mentalism, that the all is everything, we're living in a simultaneous multi-dimensional universe that really cannot be comprehended into well, first of all, it's not the 5-dimensional reality. That's not the universe. It also goes beyond probably what our perceptions can even fathom. So, one way I like to think of it is the all is the fact that 99% of all existing frequencies cannot be perceived by the 5 senses. Okay. And from that space, that's our perception that's coming up with that number. So it's that and more that is the all. The all is imperceivable. It's, of course, it sounds quite close to God, to the universe, whatever word you want to describe it as. There is this fundamental underlying existence, frequency, energy that creates the foundation for reality. And from that space of knowing that this is almost a perfectly designed universe, perfectly designed reality, perfectly designed 3-dimensional reality designed within a greater dimensional reality, the law of cause and effect basically states that, well, if you believe in that, what kind of crazy mind would think that there's such a thing as chance? You really think that when you roll the dice, there's nothing that goes into what could come out and that comes out on the other side, which leads me into the dice effect that I want to start with. Now, the funny thing is there's the correlation between chance and the roll of the dice is not only obvious, but also literal. The word chance is rooted in the word, the root of the word chance comes from the meaning to fall. And to fall was rooted in the idea of rolling dice, because the dice are to fall out of your hand, and that is chance. The funny thing is, though, even rolling the dice isn't chance. See, even when you roll the dice, there's a lot of microscopic factors that are going into the likelihood of that roll, that 3 and that 2, that 3 and that 3, whatever it is. There's a lot of factors that go into how that dice is rolled, how that dice lands. There's scene forces. Now, I am taking paraphrasing from the actual chapter in the Kybalion about the dice effect, where there's unseen forces and there are seen forces. Now, the seen forces are the obvious ones. Like, obviously, that table had to arrive there for there to be a table to roll that dice on. Well, there's also the subtle angle of the table. Is there a subtle wiggle to the table? It's the way that the box is held. It's the amount of force that you put it in. It's the angle that you held your hand in as you were rolling the dice. And those are just the seen factors. Now we go into all the unseen factors, and the unseen factors can't be particularly logically explained. There could be elements of karma. There could be karma on a multiple lifetimes that are playing out. Or there could be, karma playing out of things that you did yesterday. There could be things that are happening of what happened to someone else yesterday. Now, the big thing that I'm going to get into later is that this chain of events, it's important to almost think of cause and effect as a chain of events, not occurrences that are created by something else. So it's really, I like to think of it almost like it's the subtle way that the river flows that over time or the way that the river runs down a canal that starts to shape the ground beneath the river. That's how the river over time starts to change. And then, you've got the rocks in the river and how the rocks begin to get smooth in certain spots. You can kind of think of it that way too. So it's the river shaping the canal, or it's the way the water affects the rocks that it begins to flow over. One thing might change. If a rock were to fall into that river, then it would super subtly change the way the river flows in a following spot. And in that following spot, one rock that was starting to be worn away by the river running through it may now be stopped. And now another side of the rock is going to start to get grooves into it. And now because of that, perhaps the subtle intricacies of the river start to split apart. And now maybe the river starts to split into 2 tributaries. And then maybe that changes, and on and on and on. This is kind of how the law of cause and effect works. There's a reaction to everything that happens. It's not direct, and I shouldn't have even particularly used the word karma, because it's not a direct, because you did something bad in a past life, now something bad happens to you in this life. That could be like a really simplistic thinking of how this works out. It could, but that's not the point of this. No one thing creates a second thing. That is not the law of the principle of cause and effect. The principle of cause and effect is more about continuity and how all events before and after are all linked together. And I like one of the examples they used in the Kybalion by the 3 initiates is the example of think about how many things happened for you to be here right now in this moment. And even from not molecular particle level, think about the fact that your parents had to meet each other. And then your mom's parents had to meet each other. And then your grandpa's parents had to meet each other. And your grandma's parents also had to meet each other. And how many people back had to fall in love for you to exist right now? That your root of your existence right now started with someone in, a knight falling in love with a maid. Like, seriously, that's a perfect example of the cause and effect. How one action back then created this long ripple effect of you being here now, listening to this in this consciousness, in this body right now. So why does this principle matter? The big thing that I want to make this video about is, of course, I always want to dive into the spiritual side of things, but more important to me is how to use this as a lesson for your own psychological growth, for your own self-growth, for your own alchemy, so that you can raise your vibration, raise your consciousness, and be the creator of your best life. Because if it is that we are just these characters in this greater all that is existing and playing out, then what's to say that you don't deserve to have your best life now, your most purposeful, meaningful life now? So I really want to dive into that. And the big thing to focus on with the principle of cause and effect from the get-go is that most people are going through their life being effects, not causes. You are constantly living by this law, whether you choose to or not, because it's a law of reality. It's a law of nature, or not law of nature. It's a law of reality. The universe functions on this law in order for there to not be chaos in this three-dimensional reality. Otherwise, it would not be structured in the way it's so organized that somehow life is in our 3D weird world. But most of us are going through our lives just reacting. And not even reacting consciously. We are at the whim of people with greater will than us. This is the key part to keep in mind. If you do not become a causer, you will be an effector, which means you become this person who is burdened by energetic burdens, actual burdens, all the things to do, all of this weight, and like, I gotta do this and I gotta do that, and you're stressing because you're like, I gotta get to this job, I gotta get my kids to school, I gotta take care of this person, and I gotta be there for this person, and I'm trying to be there for my relationship. And you're like constantly giving out so much and not feeling like you're ever receiving something is a symptom of being an effector. It's not your fault. You just need to take the conscious choice to now become a causer. A causer is all about increasing your sense of power and will. Not in a negative sense, but this is also why the Kybalion can be like this. The word hermetic means to be kept secret, and it's because there's so much power in these things, because there are people in the world who have strong wills and are not using it for positive intent. So you want to become a causer from a positive space. And when you're coming at it from a positive space, you're coming from high conscious vibrations, and your effects that you're creating are amplified. There's people out there in the world who are creating all these causes in this continuity of events, and they're creating a subtle negative decline. However, when you're living in a high conscious vibration, you have exponential effects. Declines are always more linear. And so use your causing effects, your causation, in a positive sense. Use it by becoming willful and powerful in the way that you set boundaries, in the way that you prioritize the things you love to do. Become the willful person who is setting expectations and communicating what everyone needs instead of reacting. When you react, you are still in effect. So be intentional. Intention is the key to stepping into being a causer, a willful person, a powerful person. Now, one thing that I do want to touch on about the spiritual, worldly aspect of how this principle plays out on a grandiose level instead of on an individualized level is one thing that's very interesting about it is, when you talk about cause and effect, and I remember one time talking about the river analogy that I just shared with you is actually a very similar analogy that I've talked about with destiny, which basically kind of leads us all into the same point of that I want to ask about or mention is this whole question about whether free will exists or not. Now, the law of cause and effect can definitely lead you on a train of thought where it asks you, are you saying that there's no such thing as I actually have free will? Like I am just an effect of right now? I am an effect of all these causations that happened before me? And if you pay attention to what I said before this, you know that that's not necessarily true. That's not necessarily true because there's this point of will. You have the point of will. And so, the interesting thing that they talked about in the Kybalion is how, it's very much in the principle of duality for it to be that, there's free will, where you have all choice in the world and nothing is, but free will also kind of perpetuates this whole idea that some things can be chance. And then there's determinism, which is like ultimate destiny, and like it's all determined. Your life is determined for you. And just to stay with the theme of Hermetic principle, there's a quote that, in Hermetic, in the law of polarity and that duality, it says, all truths are but half-truths. And you might remember that from my last video. And so is free will, that's a half-truth. Determinism, that's a half-truth. Nothing is 100% accurate. And in your open-mindedness to all sides, you begin to see the real truth of reality. There's a quote that they share in the Three Initiates book that they say the further the creation is from the center, the more bound it is. The nearer the center it reaches, the nearer free is it. And that's, of course, a very poetic way to describe that. Like, yes, the more you get the further you get away from extremism, the closer you are to finding that the truth of reality, the truth of the nature of how our universe works. which when you do that, it begins to bring you a sense of peace. It gives you the ability to have more of a free-flowing ability to kind of create things in your life. I know that when I'm opinionated about something and I'm holding true on it, nothing good usually comes out of it. Like, whether it's a positive, good opinion, which is relative, right? Nothing necessarily ever good happens for me because there's a force that I'm holding onto this opinion. So the closer you get to the center is the closer you start to realize the way that the world works. And so coming back into free will or determinism, well, the law of cause and effect is somewhere close to the center, because yes, there's all these causes that happens to bring you to right here. Yes, a knight had to meet a maid like 1,000 years ago, and for you to be here now. But at the same time, you are not solidified into the same tomorrow. You have the power to have metacognition, to embrace will, to change your moods, to change your frequency in a moment is what's the amazing part. That you don't have to like train for it. You can literally in a moment change your thoughts and feelings and therefore change your frequency. And then you become a causer who is now influencing the way the future flows. So let's come back to the psyche here for a minute. Most people, even though we're going to start with the statement of we do have free will. We don't have ultimate free will, but we have free will. Even though free will is a part of the law of cause and effect, most people aren't free. Most people aren't free because they have become trapped as effectors from a very young age. Now, another way to describe the word effector is a victim. And if you know, listening here at Be the Hero Academy, we're here to help you become the creator, not the victim of your life. When you become a creator, it is literally the same as becoming a causer. When you become an effector, you become a victim. And so victim mentality is not necessarily something that you necessarily chose. It was a tool set that you were given, and it's the coping mechanism that most people are given to handle life. It's the coping mechanism of programming where you were taught and programmed to avoid pain, avoid suffering, live in fear, choose security and comfort over the unknown. And all of those things start to keep you in this trap of feeling disempowered, of feeling like you need to prove yourself, of feeling like you are unworthy, unlovable, not good enough. You feel incapable, and that life is hard, and that money's hard to come by. And when you have those beliefs in you, one or multiple of them, then it keeps you in a low conscious vibration. And you start to actually believe that all the things that have happened to you in your life, you had no power to control, because that was the reality you were told, that this is how life is. This is all it is. You have no ability to really, even if you were told that you can be anything that you want, there's a good chance on a subliminal level, you were not actually taught that you could be anything that you want in your life. And then this keeps you in a paradigm where you feel trapped, stuck, overwhelmed, anxious, stressed out, depressed. And if you're in any one of those things, those are signs that you have been given a program that has wired you into the belief that you have no power, you have no capability, you're not worthy and deserving of anything more. Those are the beliefs that keep you in a victimized mentality. It's your own self-beliefs that were taught to you by all the things that happened to you in your childhood programming. And then you become an effector. Becoming a causer starts by changing the program that's in your brain. And that's why in Be the Hero Academy, in our coaching programs, in our VIP Academy that you can join for free, actually, if you just fill out the form down below, you can join our VIP Academy for free, where we teach you how to recognize what exact personality program you're stuck in. Your personality, it's your gifts and your talents, and it's amazing, but it's also the cage that you're trapped in that's keeping you an effector. So if you want to learn more about that, check out the link down below and learn more about our VIP Academy, or sign up for coaching with one of us, and we will personally walk you through deconstructing your programming and reprogramming your mind to be that creator. When you live in this reality where you are given not the most beneficial program, your parents did their best, but they probably didn't give you the most beneficial program, you become that effect. When you're living as an effect, you start to believe that it is a determinate reality, that nothing great ever happens to you. You believe nothing's magical. No matter how hard I try at things, I'm always making linear improvements. And that's just another sign that you have to rewire your brain. You have to reprogram yourself, because the program you've been given has kept you in a paradigm that believes that things happen linearly. Nothing happens like crazy. You know, you hear those stories about manifestation, and if you're like, what the heck? You earned like $100,000 overnight or something like that. Maybe it was $10,000 or something. But like, even still, you'd be like, come on, that doesn't happen. That doesn't happen to me for sure. If you're having that message happen on a subconscious level, then you're stuck in a program. It gets better though, because, you know, I liked the example that the initiates used in the Kybalion, where they're basically used the example of the reason too that people don't really have free will is that they don't choose to grab it. It's literally, even if you've been given a negative program, so many people have freedom right before their eyes and they don't grab it. And the reason for this is the example that the initiates used, and I hear this all the time, so I thought it was a really good example, is how if you ask most people, they'd say, well, I can do whatever I want and I can have whatever I want in life, right? It's kind of like the American dream. I can do what I want and have whatever I want. I have free will. I can make my own choices, and I can make that choice at any time. But then you say, okay, what do you want then? And then they go, I don't know. Most people don't know what they want in life. That's totally okay, because that's part of the program that you were given. Most people were taught on such a deeply subconscious level that they're so unworthy and incapable of their dreams that they learn to shun their dreams to the point where they don't remember that they have them anymore. Your desires are the key to overcoming the victim program, period. If you don't have desire, you have no motivation to want to do the work of reprogramming your brain. Because I'll tell you what, it's simple, but it's not easy. You have to have something that you desire in your life. And that's why we work with people of all different desires. We work with people who want new relationships, who want to improve their existing relationships, who want to have a better family connection, people who want to change careers, make more money, go pursue their dreams, move to a different place, start traveling full time. We work with all those different people because there's one thing that's the same. They all have a desire. And when you have a desire, you are literally taking it upon yourself to become a causer, because you're grabbing the free will that you were given. That is how you start to create the life you want, acknowledging the fact that you have desire. Desire is your key to owning your free will. So what I really want to do though by the end of this video is help you have actual takeaways of how you can use this principle instead of being used by this principle. So the first thing that you're going to do is to become a causer. You have to rise above your mood, rise above your beliefs, and rise above your thoughts. Thought, feeling, beliefs. How do you do this? Mindfulness. Mindfulness is such an almost overused word, but it really is the key to making the transition between the life you had and the life you want. You have to be able to stop and observe yourself, because the truth is, you can't just change your thoughts if you've never practiced mindfulness before. If you don't know your thoughts, if you don't know what's going on inside the program, if you don't know the program, if you haven't gotten intimate with that program, then you're not going to be able to change it. You first have to sit in the space of being able to pause and notice on a minute-by-minute basis. To get to the minute-by-minute basis, you have to start with a day-by-day basis. Check in every day, have a journal, notice how you think, feel, and what belief that could be rooted in for why you thought and felt that way in certain situations in your day. And then it starts to become hour by hour. Then it starts to become minute by minute. When you start to do this, it gives you, metacognition allows you to notice how you're thinking and feeling. Now you can change it. Now you can rise above it when you know, oh man, I was going through my whole day feeling bad about myself or criticizing myself for how I did at that task at work today. Or I was giving myself a hard time repeating that conversation that I had with my partner or with my boss or with my own kids. I was repeating it and reliving it all day and day. And you find yourself stuck in these same thoughts. But when you start to realize it, you go, okay, jeez, it happens again. You go, oh my God, you're not going to do that again. Let's change it this time. Now you have the power to go above, to rule over your moods, thoughts, and behaviors. This is how you play the game instead of being played. Because when you rule over them, now you start to embody a higher vibration. Twofold approach. You want to always be working to identify and release the old program, But you don't need to wait till that's done to do the second part of it. Second part is to always try to raise your vibration. Become that person that you wish to be. Have positive thoughts, have positive emotions. Well, I should say, start with your positive emotions and it will change into positive thoughts. Become that joyful person, become that creative person, become that excited person, become that kind person, that assertive person, whoever it is you need to be to embrace your best self. Now, the second thing to do to embrace the principle of cause and effect is one that I didn't touch on a ton because it's a really big concept, and sometimes it's super interesting to think about, but not super helpful, in application other than this part. Notice the signs. So the whole law of cause and effect is almost like, I remember talking about, I think it was in the law of mentalism, how, things will sometimes materialize in a way that that is kind of like random. It's not always like signs from the universe, but it'll be like, oh, I'm observing water bottle, and all of a sudden someone will be like, should I get this water bottle? And I was just thinking about water bottles earlier today. That kind of thing. That's a little bit more the principle of mentalism. But the principle of cause and effect is sometimes this whole idea that because everything is happening in continuity, and in a way, the future is already being carved out by every millisecond that passes, or is being influenced by every millisecond that passes here, and it's this constantly ever-growing future. Start to pay attention as evolutions are beginning to happen. When positive things start to enter your life, almost like, those good manifestations starting to build momentum, pay attention to them and don't sleep on them. Because if you sleep on them, the law of cause and effect is like, well, this cause happened, you did all these good actions, you took aligned action in alignment with the future vision. So there's the cause, and so it's influencing this effect of this present moment where this opportunity is showing up in your life. And then if you look at it and you go, oh man, that sounds like a lot of work right now. You have either way, regardless of what you do, if you have a negative emotional reaction, now you've just created a new causer so that another effect might not happen in the future. Not to be like, it's life or death. You have to always positive emotionally react, but watch yourself and notice if you are being a causer as you're being an effector. When you're in those moments of results, effects, make sure you're still thinking about the future of this is how you create that positive exponential rise instead of just, oh, I want something, oh, I got it, wait, I have a negative reaction, so then I lose it for a while. And that keeps you in that repetitive cycle. Now, the third and final way to embrace this principle of cause and effect, I think kind of plays on the last one quite a bit, is to have trust. I know that sounds unrelated, but here's why. When you live by that idea, when you know that the world is always in a state of cause and effect every moment, it's almost like karma, but karma is so vague and confusing and very much judgment based, like very much like God is judgment kind of idea going on. It's very similar to Christian thought process, which is totally okay. But the whole law of cause and effect is just rooted in the idea that, look, when you do things a certain way, the energy follows. When you act from a positive vibration, positive energy follows. But if you're in a contractive energy, the effect is retractive. So when I say have trust, it means almost actually have trust and patience would be the better way to describe it. Because if you are the kind of person who is an overdoer, you're overly productive, you're putting in so much work, and you're waiting, you're like, why are my manifestations not happening? Why are the things I want not occurring? Well, you're not trusting in the process enough. Your lack of trust in the law of cause and effect is causing you to be in a subconscious degree of scarcity energy, which makes your effects also in a scarce energy. They're not as abundant of opportunities and situations as you'd like them to be, whether that's with people, money, opportunity, it doesn't matter. When you know the law of cause and effect, it teaches you and reminds you to have a trust and patience that if you put in good work to help people for good things, like you're doing something like this, trying to offer something to people to help them integrate into their own life so that they can live better lives and feel more fulfilled and joyful and purposeful. Or if you're someone who's creating amazing things, or if you're showing up at work and you're helping your company, which even though you're getting paid to do, you're still helping. Everyone is helping in all the different works that they're doing. You're helping your family, your loved ones, your partners. You're showing up from service. And as long as you remind yourself that you're showing up from a true sense of service, then you are going to have positive effects if you stay in a line long enough. This is kind of a foundation that can help you to release that scarcity and therefore actually have the effect repercussions that you'd like them to have. Now, last but not least, as a bonus, because I realized that I didn't get to touch on this, even though I finished my classic 3 bullet points, the last one that I want to mention is to think about this whole idea. The whole there is no chance thing is very much, resonates through a lot of ancient traditions. I think there's a Chinese proverb that, there are no accidents, something like that. I might be butchering it, whatever. But there's no accidents, there's no chance, there's none of that. And people usually are telling that piece of wisdom to people who feel like, I can't believe this happened to me. Which is oddly similar to being the victim in life, where something happened to me and it was an accident. It shouldn't have happened that way. Why did that accidentally happen to me? It sucks. Bad things happen to people. And I empathize for if anything really, really difficult and traumatic has happened in your life. I empathize with you and understand how painful it is. That's why we do so much trauma healing at the same time in Be the Hero Academy, because it is hard. But at the same time, if you just wallow in it, or if you ruminate in it and you don't heal it and move past it, then what does that do you in life? It doesn't help you get to the life you want to be in. And so there are no accidents, there is no chance. Think about possibly, what could that situation have been there for? Could you journal on it? Could you answer it in one sentence? Could you think about it? And think about, maybe it taught you a certain character quality. Maybe it taught you to do something that you need to do in the future. Maybe it gave you a sign. Maybe it gave you a symbol. Maybe it helped you integrate closer to yourself. Maybe it helped you get closer to certain people. Whatever it is, think about, if there is no accidents and there is no chance, why did that thing happen to you and for you? Life is happening for you, not to you. So that wraps up my video all about the principle of cause and effect. Let me know what you think about it, and if I missed anything, if you have anything that goes against what I said, let me know in the comments too. I appreciate if you think that my certain line of thought around the principle of cause and effect was totally off, tell me down below. And I look forward to seeing you guys in the next video, the last video about the Kybalion's 7 Hermetic principles. Namaste.